Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. We're going to be talking about why Russia is basically on the verge of collapse following massive strikes that took place all across Russia. And this is Ukraine's answering back for Russia's strike on Kyiv last night. Russia, in its infinite wisdom, decided it would be a good idea to attack more civilian areas in the Ukrainian city. Now, Russia did have a legitimate target that it went after at one point, but then all of that just seemed to fly out the window. And today we have massive attacks that are spreading all across Russia, as deep as 2,500. I can't make this up. 2,500 kilometers deep, all right, against the Omsk Gazprom oil refinery. Check this crap out. Like when we actually go over, pull this sucker up and take a look at it. Oh, this is the compilation one. Excuse me, this is the wrong one. Now, all of these that I have up on the map and this video that you're about to see is basically a compilation, all right, of all of these other strikes. We have strikes that went down over near the Crimean Peninsula, over by the Kursk Bridge, and Ukraine has been just smashing, and I mean literally smashing Russian oil all day long. I've got a report for you guys that I'm going to go over here in just a little bit that actually talks about how screwed Russia is when it comes to their freaking oil exports and what it actually means for their economy and just how freaking damaged they really are. Sorry about that music. Totally forgot. I mean, they're wrecked internally, just completely and totally wrecked. They're out of money. They've got so much freaking debt. It's beyond me. And just as I had told you guys all a long time ago, it's all directly tied to their economy. And it looks like Crimea is actually on the verge of collapse as well. So none of this is like looking very promising for Russia as we move forward. I've also got some frontline updates for you guys that we're going to be going over as we continue to move into this. So I hope you guys are ready for that, because those frontline updates, in my opinion, are pretty dang significant when we actually start looking at all this stuff. But nonetheless, let's go ahead, kick off, and just go over what some of these attacks are or where. And again, we've got tons of these dang things here. We can go over this one. Take a look. This is the same damn oil refinery, 2,500 kilometers deep. It's over here. Let's get this sucker. Come on, buddy. Open up, open up, open up. There you go. You got this. Woo! Here's your Omsk oil refinery on fire. I know you guys are saying, oh, the maps. Yes, I got the maps back for you guys. You guys asked for them, so you got them. Rut-row. Rut-row. Check that out. 2,500 plus kilometers deep inside of Russia, depending on where that drone ended up launching from. Probably ended up flying a hell of a lot longer than that. Now, why is this so significant when we talk about like that particular strike capability when we look? Well, one, Russia is supposed to be really well defended, and it's not. Like, they just keep getting smashed. Here's another angle of it. All these videos ended up getting reported coming out today. So everything that I'm going to end up putting up on the screen for you guys has all been pulled OSINT. So do your best to verify it. If you guys want, I can drop links for these maps to y'all over inside the Discord so you guys can watch as I'm updating these things throughout the day. But it is a buttload. So and you're going to see how big of an actual impact this has, because I do, in fact, have the report of this, which is why it's so significant. It basically is going to render Russia completely and totally incapable of fighting moving forward in the next couple months. They're just, quite frankly, don't have the logistical abilities to support themselves any further. So yes, when we look at the map, when we talk about this oil refinery where it's located 2,500 kilometers deep, look at that. I mean, it's like curvature of the earth freaking gone. You know what I mean? Here's the border. Let me clear some of this stuff up, because I also have, like I said, frontline updates, which we can go over here in just a little bit. Maybe take the combat engagements from the day off, And there you're going to go ahead and see that. So these are all of the strikes that are currently up on the map that took place over the last 12 to 24 hours that we are aware of. And all of these ones that are up here, minus one or two, are basically oil refineries in different sites. This one is a S-400 launch site that ended up getting hit. When we start moving up closer to Moscow, we have another oil refinery that ended up getting hit. You have to zoom all the way out and go all the way up north over here. And you even got this freaking oil terminal that ended up getting hit as well, completely and totally underreported, that ended up going by today. But of course, your boy Matt, he's going to figure out what the hell Ukraine's beating up. When we go down to the south, probably some more of the significant ones is what I ended up showing you, which is another S-400 launch site over in the Crimean Peninsula, like on the very tip by the Kerch Bridge. And then we also have an attack on the oil depot terminal that ended up taking place over there as well. Across the Crimean Peninsula, they continue to slam Russia. You have another electrical substation that ended up getting smashed over there. And all of these, again, we have links with videos. So I kind of like the way going about this. You guys can let me know if you don't prefer it this way. But for all these updates, I have links that I can go to that are included within this map. And like I said, I can share this with you guys. Over in the Discord, you all are more than welcome to go to it and see these different strikes and everything that's taking place. And it's been geolocated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of work that goes into it, but I do love it. Bo Williams coming in says, good evening, everyone. Well, good evening, Bo. Eagles fan Clark says Putin needs to be thinking about hiding and or fleeing. I agree. The citizens are just about to freaking kill that guy. Mike Hoffman game in and gifted out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you very much, sir. And we are going to continue on this path, showing you guys just the absolute abysmal freaking defense that Russia has actually set up for themselves. As we're still waiting on some people to pour in here, I do want to bring this to everybody's attention. It's something that I went over this morning that happened to Russian forces. Not, by the way, if you want to see like actual impact, these are the Ukrainian strikes within the last, I think it was 30 days that I ended up putting up on the screen this morning for you guys. And again, I can share these maps with you all if you all want access to them. And again, we'll drop them over in the Discord so you guys have access to all of this. But this is significant, man. I'm about to show you guys the impact of all of that. But first, some of you guys probably missed it, but Wagner Group over inside of Mali ended up getting its, and yeah, that's correct. Like the old school Wagner Group from Russia all the way down here in Africa over in Mali ended up getting freaking ambushed by a bunch of jihadists. And we've got videos of their helicopters and whatnot being shot down over here, which is absolutely insane. Let's see if I can grab it. There we go. And you can actually watch these things getting shot down. Check this out. Anyways, as I would love to sit here and trash on like the Wagner Group getting its butt handed to it by jihadists down inside Africa, I'm gonna go ahead and skip that and get more or less into the current update for what's going on over inside of Ukraine. So let's go ahead and switch that map back over, get you guys back up and running, at least for these strikes, and show you some of the stuff that's going down. Probably one of the most significant ones that is going down is these refineries that are over outside of Moscow. Now, the reason these are a little bit more significant is because all of the outlying oblasts that have been affected by, these fuel strikes, that's caused Russia to basically take that oil and start bringing it back in towards Moscow and also up over towards like St. Petersburg, trying to keep like the impression that Russia is doing good and they got enough oil to last and everything else. Unfortunately, that's just not the case when we start taking a look at this, and that they just continue to get freaking smashed by just about everybody on the freaking planet. That's not the right one. Let's get this up here. Oh, that's not the right one either. Excuse me. So this is probably one of the more significant strikes. I can't do it with the sound, man. Here's the particular oil refinery that ended up getting hit. You guys see the little dramatization there going on. I get sick of the music and then they demonetize me at the same time. Eagles fan Clark says those Russian air defense systems must be absolute junk. Ukraine is cutting through there. Through like they are not even there. We cut through in Venezuela and Iran. Yeah, this report that I'm about to go over with you guys here in just a sec actually details some of the effects and impacts of all of that. And, you know, how everybody was cheering or screaming that, you know, the ease up on the Russian oil sanctions and everything had a huge, you know, benefit as far as Moscow is concerned. Basically ends up not being entirely true. When we take a look at it. So the significance of everything that I'm doing, and you know what, might as well go over this. This is a report called Endgame. It's the Kiel report, excuse me, that goes over the Russian economy, published just a few days ago in June. The executive summary, honestly, is pretty freaking good, but there's a couple charts that I wanted to point to in here. And the charts in particular, like the one on page 29, for example, let's just cut through a lot of this crap and go all the way down to PDF page 29. That's the amount of money Russia's spending, everything else. There we go. All right. So this is, oh, come on. Let's just zoom in the old fashioned way, shall we? I got to make me play games. So this is Russian oil and gas revenues. Now, I want you to take a look at the bottom of this chart as you go into it. You have 21. Stop it. You have 21 going into 22 right here down at the bottom of the screen. And you guys can see how elevated they were. And then sanctions ended up hitting. Boom. And they crash. Somehow, magically, Russia figured out how to go around those sanctions. And then they get attacked and then they go back down. And they've been playing this back and forth game. And they remain between 10 and 15 billion, roughly, until we crossed over into 2025. Does everybody see this right here? Once we crossed into 2025, you'll notice that it tanked way the hell down here. Way down here in 2025. So what happened at the beginning of 2025? Well, we had Venezuela, and then we had the war kick off in Iran, and then you saw things start to like spike and elevate a little bit. And that spike took place until Ukraine ended up smashing all these dang oil refineries. As soon as those things ended up going down, I want you to look at the effects of this. 2026, as we see the that crash all the way down, all of these oil refineries getting smashed. Excuse me. The spike occurs a little bit, but it doesn't go far. But Ukraine started attacking all these refineries last year at the mid to tail end of 2025. And you guys can see that they went from over 12 billion and they crash all the way down to 5. Like beginning of the war, pre-war, you're looking at like 15 to freaking 22 billion in sales. So that's essentially like a 75% cut from their freaking all-time high, if not more, depending on where you want to average that out at. But they have completely and totally crushed them. Now, this is a very big deal when we start like going over the freaking data that goes into, what has caused like this huge drop inside of this report. High energy prices over inside of there as well. But again, December 2025 through February 26, average roughly, all right, 5.5 billion as far as those sales are concerned. So they got crushed really, really hard getting set down. And that increase of the attacks on these oil refineries is what we are seeing all across, rippling throughout Russia, in addition to the logistical issues that they're having on the front line. Russia has been putting a lot of money into their propaganda, trying to make everybody believe that they're out there doing really, really well, and nothing could be further from the truth. The oil and gas revenues are just one tiny part of this entire report. When you start looking at it, the amount of money that the Russian banks are lending out that end up just going through the damn roof. You can see starting in 2022, the amount of funds are just drying up left and right. Military related borrowing goes through the damn roof starting in 2022. You guys can see it 450 as opposed to, everything else. I mean, it's out of control. Look at that one. Domestic rubles bank loans. Look where it starts to spike. 2022 continues to freaking spike all the way up. So their money, if you will, is drying up ridiculously fast. Right-wing gun nut says MFers could quit heroin before I could quit watching this show. Greatly appreciate you, Matty, old boy. Well, thank you very much, man. And we haven't even gotten to all the freaking footage and stuff that's going on. Eagles fan Clark says those Russian air defense systems are trash. Yes, sir. I just read that one like probably 3 times over before we get into it. Okay, so let's get into some of these other strikes that we have going on. Take a look, see what we've got. S-400 air system being taken out. I believe that's that same stupid one that I accidentally like put on every single freaking link. Here we go. Forces destroyed the Russian S-400 systems. That's not the video that I wanted, of course, because it's, you guys give me a break here. This is my new system. All right. That's the Omsk oil refinery burning. Let's go venture up north over here. That's the other one. All right, let's go back down here over into the south and take a look at our S-400s. Get up there. Get up there. Why are you doing this? So it is a combination of all of them. Can't do it. It is the combination of all of them that ended up getting taken out down there. All right. We've got Scott Strantum 173 coming in, gifting out those Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you very much. And yes, I do. I see a question in there, or I believe I saw the question about what's going on with Iran. I've got a slight update for that for you guys as well. So we'll make sure that we get that out there as well. Castle Survival says, big question is, will Russia use big guns before they collapse? I don't think they will. And I don't think Russia is going to use those big guns for a reason. And that is because I don't think they work. And even if they have one of them that does work, the absolute annihilation that'll take, like that'll hit Russia following that, I don't think they're going to have the ability to react. Was it last year? No, year before last. I think it was 2024 going into 2025. We saw Russia attempt multiple ballistic missile launches, some like a bunch of tests, and they all ended up freaking failing. So they honestly, I think if Russia does attempt this, it's not going to turn out so good for them. 500 is the new one, but it's been unseen. Well, yeah, you say it's been unseen, but here's the deal. When we start looking at the locations of these strikes, this morning I ended up showing what Crimea looks like as far as lights go and how far out they've been just blacked out, which, by the way, as we start talking about, the strikes that were taking place up over inside of Russia, we're now getting reports of power outages and things like that that are starting to spread. So these are just the big drone strikes on some of the refineries and stuff around the country. But to be quite frank, they're also going after some of these electrical substations and everything else. So those are not going to be lasting very long. Oh, yeah, here you go. You also got the thermal power station that's been freaking blasted. I want to make sure I've got the right one. Here you go. Belgorod, totally screwed.
Что-то нахуй въебало куда-то конкретно. Ебать, там хуярит. Охуеть. Оно прям буквально в пару секунд там все разгорелось. Пылает, ебать. Горит.
So there's one of them that ends up going up there. We go back in. We should have some more videos if I remember right. Oh, yeah. There you go. Burning it down, baby. Burning it down. So this is up along what we're looking at over here is right up over outside Belgrade thermal power station. And this is where a lot of those blackouts are coming from. No, dear God, I'm not going to do that. Let's see this next one. I feel like that's the same one. Yeah, that's the same one I just played. So there's your confirmation of that going down. Now, one of the big things that's out there before I get into everything is the Russian forces claiming that they took the town of Kostyanyakivka. I forget how the hell to pronounce this dang thing. This one right down here. And this is something that I think requires a little bit of attention as we go into it. This is that contested town that Russia claims that they have taken. I went ahead, took some time, and ended up mapping this out today and ended up breaking it down as well, putting the information out for those people on X. All of this happened after the Russians ended up raising a flag. Well, that flag raising video that they ended up posting claiming they took the town is actually geolocated right over here to this position. Something very interesting happens when we end up taking the map and switching it over, and that is this. As you zoom in and you take a look, number one, we have the Ukrainian forces that are actually smack dab in the center of the town. and owning the city center. And these are geolocated photographs of those Ukrainian soldiers that put this out in direct rebuttal to the Russians. The Russians are sitting on the outskirts of the town. This is one, as you can see, literally right where the F they were standing when they did the flag raising video. The other one, or the other two, excuse me, are right down here. Where you can see they're hanging out. So this is where we have Russian flag positions and things like that. Now, something very, very clear sits in between them, and it's this river, all right, that leads up over to the actual center of the place. And it's the same thing once we actually get up over here to these Russian positions. You can't really see it, but right down in here in these bushes is, in fact, yet another like linear danger area that they would have to cross in order to get in there, in order to try to get to those Ukrainian troops. When I switch the map over, you guys can actually see it a hell of a lot more clear. It's denoted. So you've got thick vegetation, presumably right now, but you also have these like linear danger areas. If Russia was to attempt to cross into any of this space to try to come around, they're going to get freaking smashed hard. All right. Like if they try to go in there. So they're going to have to figure out how they're going to cross these damn rivers to get over to take this terrain that they're currently claiming. And this is where the Russian propaganda game really starts getting weak, because anybody that knows how to freaking look at a map and understands like the basics and tactics knows that if they are going to be attacking this position, they're going to end up losing a metric buttload of men that quite frankly, they don't have any anymore. The rumors of them trying to mobilize 1 million, launch a brand new freaking offensive, all this other BS that you hear all of the time, it's just, in my opinion, just not going to happen. And so this is the important part for folks to understand is, yes, they are outside of it, but that's where they're at. They're in these outlying areas, all right, the outlying areas, and you got Ukrainian soldiers that are still holding it down on the inside. So the Russians aren't exactly able to break in there right now as we speak. Castle of Survival says, I'm asking if they'll use them as a show of force or if they'll just escalate conventionally until attrition makes them collapse. Mad doctrine. If in the corner. All right, so let's play that out, Castle. It's a good question. Let's play it out. Let's take a look at what we just talked about as far as these strategic strikes go. So if I go back to this morning's map and show you guys, these are the Russian attacks that ended up taking place over inside of Kiev. All right, so give me a second here to kind of break this down for you. You did have this ammunition storage site that got hit. Now, they are trying to claim that this is strictly where they were storing everything. I've also read that it's also a location where they were putting, drones and things like that together. So munitions were being stored there, but they were also manufacturing long-range things that they were using to attack Russia with. So Russia fired hundreds of these damn things again overnight in an attempt to attack and destroy. Now, we had two main areas that ended up getting smashed over inside of Kyiv. You had the ammunitions depot, but you also had the residential hills over here in this area, okay, that ended up getting hit right on the other side of the Dnipro. So this is what Russia was capable of doing over the last 12 to 24 hours, let's say. All right, striking one ammunition depot, an alleged ammunition depot, but from the explosions it most certainly looks like it, and then also striking Kiev. When you zoom out and you take a look, when you actually zoom out and you take a look and you say, okay, well, that happened, but here is all of the strategic targets that Ukraine had struck within the last, I believe it was like 60 to 90 days when I populated that data. And then we go back and we take a look at the last 12 hours, okay, following that attack, following that attack that Russia ended up launching. Let's look at all of the targets that Ukraine has struck. Take a good dang look at them because they are continuing to hammer this. And the reason I bring that up is because you brought up escalation, right? And their ability to escalate. In order to escalate it, they're going to need logistics. And right now, with the way their economy is resting and with how much stuff they have stored up, it's turning into a finite supply. It's very quickly turning into a finite supply of everything they have. So while they might have drone waves and all this other crap that they're launching out there, and I've shown you guys on this channel that you can literally go over to, I think it was like Alibaba or Temu or something like that, and build one of those little cheap ass Russian drones, that they're freaking shooting down. But with all of that being said, here we have actual strategic targets being taken out. And strategic meaning it's actually impact the overall war effort, right? The Russian war effort as far as Ukraine's concerned. This is going to stop what the Russians are capable of doing. This is going to stop resupply. This is going to stop weapons production. This is going to stop food. This is like all sorts of crap that's going to be affecting the Russians. That is a pretty big hit. And so when we talk about Russia's ability to launch a large-scale attack, theoretically speaking, they could have some pretty big hoorahs blasting stuff off. But also remember that their ballistic missiles and things that they've been shooting over the last couple of years have had a decent failure rate as they're shooting these damn things off. And in addition to that, a good chunk of them continue to get shot out the sky. All right. Last night, I don't think a single ballistic missile got shot out of the sky, if I remember correctly. It just didn't happen. But in the nights previous to that and previous, you're seeing a decent amount of these things actually getting shot down. So I say that because Russia's, supplies should be diminishing pretty freaking hard, and their aerial defense assets clearly suck when you're getting strikes 2,500 kilometers deep into their country, and you're supposed to be this big, formidable freaking Russia. So with that being said, if they fire all of that stuff off as a hoorah, good on them. Let them freaking go at it. But it's not going to last very long. All right. When we start talking about Crimea and specifically what's happening down here in the South, I want to show you guys something too. Let me turn off these Russian flags and the Ukrainian flags from that area. And I want to show you the major conflict areas. Turn all these on that have kind of gone up along the front lines. And you're going to notice something. You're going to notice something in particular. Remember how we talked about Ukrainian doctrine, just kind of waiting these guys out and letting the Russians throw their freaking meat waves at them. Okay. So where are the meat waves currently being thrown? Your pins are on the map, right? When we go and we look up in the north, we have some very small scale assaults that were taking place without a lot. They had ongoing assaults up here, but not a hell of a lot ended up coming out of it. Doesn't really look like they advanced very far. Over near Kupiansk, the Russians are claiming that they advanced, but there's just basically pretty damn heavy clashes. Now, look at how close to the border these areas are, okay? Pretty damn close when you start looking at it. When we start getting closer down here, you can see Chasiv Yar. You can see these other locations that are down in here. Again, you've got Luhansk, Donetsk, etc., where they've had established supply lines for quite some time to be able to go in and feed, but still they're not getting very much freaking movement up over on these lines. They're trying to claim they're clearing Lyman, and they're advancing towards it. We can cover that a little bit more in depth here in the future. But again, all of your assaults that they're actually launching, like actual physical ground assaults, are taking very close proximity to their borders, and that's for a reason. Once you start getting down here near Zaporizhia, take a look at that. Nothing. Nada, zip, zilch. Nothing. That's significant. This is probably one of the most significant maps I think I've seen in a long time when it goes down to this. Russians used to try to advance down here. They used to try to push. They used to try to do something, anything. And this is not me just pushing a random narrative. These are all of the different attacks that for some reason ended up hitting the spotlight in one way or another, right? And it's to the point where Russians are claiming fake freaking advances, in locations that they're fighting around and over, right? Trying to claim that they sacked the town, but they couldn't. They're stuck on the outskirts of it. They haven't been able to take it yet. And look at that strategic location and all those different routes it ends up cutting through. So you'll notice that all of those pins, I like clearing some of this stuff off because it makes it a little bit busy with all the labeling and stuff I put on it. But you'll notice that all of those pins are over in the east and pushing north over by their border. Remember what I talked to you guys about yesterday when I was talking about Russia. Let me see, I might have it up on this morning's map. Hopefully, maybe. Did I put it on there? I did. All right. So now maybe I ought to just take this one and copy and paste it over there. Ukrainians claim 15 to 20,000 Russian troops are under their direct fire control. Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Force commander, let me see if I can get his name, Magar, claimed that 15 to 20,000 Russian troops in southern Ukraine are under Ukrainian total fire control due to drone strikes, destroying supply lines and logistics. Okay. So down here, over near Kherson, you've got 15 to 20,000 Russians that are just freaking stuck and trapped. And if you ask, like looking at the maps, is there anything that we could possibly believe that would go about confirming that? In my opinion, hell yeah, there is. What we're looking at that's confirming that is the fact that the only attacking forces are freaking like halfway up the damn zero line, halfway up the eastern freaking, border of freaking Ukraine, because this is where their logistical supplies are partially intact. And even then, they're not capable of making those advances. And they're still losing 30,000+ troops a month. All right. Down here, it's all quiet on the Western Front. All quiet. Why? Their supply lines, they're bridging, trying to come across the land bridge, are getting taken out left and right by Ukrainian drones. They don't have the ability to supply themselves all the way over here. They simply don't. When you start looking at what's taken place near the Crimean Peninsula, the different strikes and things that have taken place down here, you've got bridges, etc., that have been knocked out. Crimea is essentially in blackout mode right now with the amount of stuff that's been taken out. And what little aerial defense assets they have just got struck. And they continue to do it. And they just smashed this area right over here by the Kerch Bridge. So again, if the Russians want to resupply themselves up over on the front line, they've got two options to try to resupply these guys, which would be the land bridge, which again, logistically, I don't think they have the ability to do. What's likely happening is they're, what do you want to call it? Reorganizing and redistributing supplies. Taking supplies from the southern Zaporizhia freaking area, over to the west of Donetsk and trying to shove it all the way over to here, trying to keep those guys afloat. They can only do that for so long. And as I stated this morning, winter is coming, and it's coming fast. As soon as winter steps up, as long as all of this persists, which it's very likely to, I think Ukraine does have the ability to do that, because let's be honest, what was Russia able to smash? One freaking munitions depot, allegedly, outside of Kiev. Okay, well, these Russians that are on the front lines can't freaking supply themselves. And they're probably just pushing what they have left in Zaporizhia over to the freaking blah, 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 over down into the southwest, over by Kherson, trying to keep it moving. But it's not going to work out for them. It's just my feeling on that. So, Castle, I hope that answered your question, friend. I really do. Fox says, speaking of blackouts, Cuba is also in a blackout. 10 million people without power. I got a feeling somebody knocked out the power. Chris Hincliffe's in the house and gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Vincent Kuznar says, I know this would never happen and cause World War III, but if it didn't, it would be cool if Ukraine would allow payment to fly a drone remote the last few yards to destroy a Russian target. That would actually be really cool if Ukraine just started doing like war tours. Like, you know what? We need to freaking start making some more money. We'll allow tourists to come in and smash Russians with drones. You might have to dodge artillery. You might have to dodge drones and whatnot to get there. But I mean, you'll get there eventually. You maybe will. You can charge a couple grand to freaking kill a Russian, like 20 grand, kill a Russian with a freaking FPV. Have fun with it. We'll give you the video. You can take it home with you. I got a feeling there's something that's against the law that goes into that. Eagles fan Clark says Iran just fired on two more commercial ships in the Strait. Oh, great. Well, now we'll go take a look at that. Macdad coming in, gifting out 99 cents. Thank you very much. So that's what the front line looks like over inside of Ukraine. And it's effed, to be perfectly honest, as far as the Russians go. I showed Rick Sanchez this morning on this morning's show and how hard he was pushing this, trying to claim that, Russia is doing great things. They're going to continue to advance. They've taken these cities and they're going to keep pushing. But he's taking out the logistical aspect and he's living in Delulu land as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion. Can we do a Discord chat today? Yeah, I think we can. I have no problem doing a Discord chat. But yeah, Rick Sanchez, as far as I'm concerned, off over living in Delulu land. So as a whole, as we look at this line, the Russian supplies are just shit. They're done. They're over. They're terminated. They're gone, as far as I'm concerned. You just cannot fight this level of logistical freaking destruction. There's no getting through it. So as they continue to do this, as they continue to ramp up these attacks, as they continue to destroy them, Russians aren't going to be able to push very hard for very much longer. And every bullet that they fire is going to be one that they're going to have to figure out how to replace. So that's about all. I mean, if you really want to know the direction it's heading, I was also talking with Nate about this, and he's in agreement that Crimea, eventually you're going to end up seeing everybody evacuate out of there. You're going to have people pulling out. You're going to see the government probably evacuating people out of there. Crimea is likely going to be one of the first places that falls. At least you're going to see the civilians and everybody that just gets the heck out of there. If they don't, and for some reason they remain occupied, these folks most certainly are going to collapse with what's taking place along the front. Every time I hear something from one side or the other, whether it's the Russians, the Ukrainians, I got to take a look and I got to say, is it reasonable, for this guy to be claiming that the Russians are about to fall over there? Well, your bridges are knocked out going across from Crimea, and you've got no intact supply line pushing from Russian main soil to get over there. These guys might fall first, or Crimea might fall first in the evac. But these were the strikes as of this morning over the last 12 hours. Take a look at that sucker. Just crushed, man, absolutely crushed. And you have more power stations, more infrastructure, things like that ended up getting taken out. So they're not going very far. Crimea is dark. They're running out of it. And look, they're continuing to hammer the same area, right? It's not going anywhere. So what are they going to do? They don't really have an option. If Putin leaves to starve them out, let's say Putin says, you know what, screw you guys, or their generals, you guys are staying over there and you guys are going to end up, fighting it out, duking it out to the last bullet. They're still going to end up surrendering at some point. You're going to have some guys that want to stick out and do that, but they're still going to end up getting smashed at some point. It's just a freaking fact. That's just how it's going to go. With that being said, now, because people wanted to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because apparently there's some strikes going now, we'll put this stuff up on the map for you guys in just a second. But over the last 24 hours, the amount of ships and stuff that were going through here, that were going through the Strait, not that many. We're still not up to capacity where it's supposed to be. And there was only a handful, I think it was like 2, maybe, ships that have chosen to use the Omani route. Everybody else has been going through the Iranian route. Last 24 hours, I don't think there was a single ship that used the Oman route, if I remember correct. But either way, if it was in the single digits. So the Oman route's a thing. And now you guys are telling me that Iran is now attacking those. Now, here's the catch. We'll get to that in a second. I'll go pull that data and get those attacks up on the screen and make sure we're tracking on what's going on there. The Iran situation isn't going to go anywhere just because of the different things that we're seeing going on over inside of Lebanon. And coming out of Lebanon and into Israel. You still had Hezbollah rocket attacks that have been taking place over the last 24 hours. You still have the IDF that's pushing in several different areas and locations inside of Lebanon, which is in direct contradiction to what Iran wants. In my opinion, and the article actually talks about this, that I originally had referenced, and this is where the Strait of Hormuz and Iran situation ties back into Russia. I am so happy I am not the only one that's looking at this. Let's go back in here. Let's open up China on this document. Asymmetric partnership is what they end up calling it as you get in there. The amount of supplies and everything that Russia is getting from China is astronomical where it goes in, not to mention how cheap China is buying all of that oil. So one of the main things that people like to argue is that, well, Russia is able to sell this freaking oil to China. Okay, well, let's take a look at it. China pays nearly 40% less for Russian gas than other clients coming out of Russia. The scale of this pivot is striking. Looking at crude oil and condensed it specifically, Europe's share of Russian exports collapsed from about half in 2020 to 12% in 24, while Asia's share surged from 41 to 81%, which, as we talked about, you have Russian oil that is just going over to Asia, being refined, and then being shipped back over to the EU. So you're still, if you're in the EU, you guys are still buying a shitload of Russian oil, FYI. For total goods trade, reorientation is even starker. Here's the point. Yes, China is buying a lot of Russian oil, but they're paying 40% less than anybody else that's buying Russian oil, which is already cheaper, right, than what's going out there at the market value because of all of the sanctions and stuff that are on Russian. So imagine if oil is sitting at $100 a barrel and Russia is selling to everybody else, that means China is paying $60 a barrel when it's at 100. We talked before how Russia has got to keep it above 65. So they've been hurting it drastically when it goes down to everything. This long-term draw, as far as Russia's financials go, is even worse. Their like reserve money that they had left over is dwindling. It's like 1.5% or something like that, like remaining of their GDP in reserves. Like they have jack and squat, and that's down all the way from, I think it was like 7.5%, something like that. The amount of material support, which blew my mind, that was in here, that Russia is buying from China when it goes towards the war effort, is absolutely astronomical. Here you go. EU share, China now accounts for about 35% of Russia's total foreign trade, up 16% of exports, 30% of imports before the invasion. Bilateral trade more than doubled from 104 billion in 2020 to 245 billion in 24. After the explosive growth in mutual trade, 22 to 23, bilateral trade then stagnated as markets became saturated and the threat of U.S. secondary sanctions intensified. Prolonged stagnation of the power of Siberia 2 pipeline negotiations illustrates the limits of this arrangement through a legally binding memorandum that was signed in 2025. Two sides have yet to agree on the price, timeline, and investment, but the overall energy relationship has functioned as an economic buffer on material significance. So they're just sucking ass. I don't know how else to say that. Yeah. I mean, so there's that. All right, let's go over and check out as that's going on. Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to pull some information up on that. While I'm pulling up information on that, I do want to show you guys a video. Oh, come on. Why did you not open? Of the... it's denying me access to the video, but I could view it on my Mac. That's weird. That's really frustrating. Some of the attacks that were taking place over inside Kyiv that ended up sparking this huge freaking smash down. So let me grab a good video for you guys to play while I go and I grab the relevant information for the Strait of Hormuz attacks. And give me just a sec. We're almost there. I've got tons left. Here, let's go take a look at some of these aftermath videos. Are you going to allow this? Wow. So I guess somebody caught me backdooring some of their stuff. Bastards. Bastards. I had some really nice, decent, long videos that I had. All right. So there's something else I want to play for you guys that got shared with me today. And I'm going to warn you guys before I end up putting it up there that it is slightly graphic. And it is of a Russian attack against a taxi cab over outside of Kherson. It is blurred out as per YouTube's policy and guidelines. And I will be showing the video in its entirety, but I'm just giving you a warning because even though it's blurred out and it's still slightly gruesome, I just want you guys to know that this does document a Russian war crime attack on a civilian taxi cab that took place over reportedly in Kherson. It's about a minute long, so. All right. Yep. Screw Russia. Hate Russia. Just like me. It's perfectly okay and it's perfectly understandable. All right. Should have the map update that I'm going to be able to take and dump for you guys. Give me just a sec as I get that prepped up and on your screen. And it's going to include the coordinates so you guys can watch me do this crap in real time. Already got that set. Go ahead and grab that and just drop it onto our update for today as we go look at it. Let's go ahead and import the file. Import from the device. And we got our Strait of Hormuz update. And let's go ahead and finish it. And here we go. Woo, baby. Here we go. Second commercial ship strike with significant damage. All right, IRGC fired at least 2 missiles in total. A second ship also sustained major damage while transiting the strait. Both attacks confirmed by U.S. officials near the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz. Wall Street Journal and Associated Press provided a timeline for the events. The possible IRGC launch site, according to the Wall Street Journal. So it looks like we're probably going to have another set of strikes on the strait. Gives an overview from them. Here we go. Wall Street Journal. Let's see what they had to say about it. They fired 2 missiles at ships inside of the Strait of Hormuz. Attacks could complicate the negotiations. You don't say. Yeah, as their morning committee, I don't give a shit. Let's see what Axios has to say. They're generally free and not a big pain in the ass to read. Of course, Axios wants to be a pain. Get out of here. Get out of here. Tanker set ablaze after being struck by the projectile off the coast of Oman. UAE, a tanker traveling off the coast of Oman in the Strait of Hormuz caught fire early Tuesday morning after being struck by a projectile, according to the British military. Attack was the largest targeted vessel moving through the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf, through which a fifth of all oil, blah, 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 blah. U.S. is eager to press ahead, blah, 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 blah. So not a lot of information so far has came out on it, but it does look like, stop, get out of here. It does look like the map update that I gave is for realsies. So here are your 2 tanker strikes. This one is on fire off the coast. This is the exact location reported 8 nautical miles east of Oman. Oman southbound in U.S.-backed southern quarter. So that's interesting. So it's southbound, meaning it had already left and it was traveling down. Does this one say if it was south or northbound? near the entrance. It doesn't say whether it was southbound or not. So there you go. There's your location of the two ships that ended up getting struck, locations where they're at, and the probable launch site from the IRGC. Last time this happened, and you guys, if you're going to be looking or tracking for this stuff as well, U.S. the last 2 times in a row, I believe, is struck Sirak over here, over in the Strait of Hormuz, along with Keshem Island and Bandar Abbas. I got a feeling the U.S. is going to open up a hell of a lot larger this time against them because of that. So we'll see what ends up coming out of it. It doesn't freaking shock me at all that the Iranians are doing this crap. Yeah, it was doomed to fail, like I told you guys a long time ago. USA just lost to Belgium 4-1. Oh no, the foosball. No, not football. We lost at soccer. God forbid. Dang it, man. I was really not giving a shit. And now I just care this much less. I don't care about sports, man. I know you guys do. I know a lot of people do. It's just not my thing. To be quite frank, if I had that much time to look up sports, I wouldn't be sitting here going over all this stuff. I just wouldn't have the time to do it. Krupman says, I keep forgetting to ask the total to is totally off topic. The videos of the exploding mic theory. Did John Bray create the world's most expensive poppet, the firecracker that you throw on the ground or tape to a toilet seat? He didn't even create it because he, number one, doesn't have the training experience or authorization in order to do so. He'd get arrested for violating federal law if he did it. So he would have to take care of that. Yeah, just a huge freaking pain in the butt for him, I guess. Let's see here. Sports ball. Yeah, we can call it lots of different things. All I know is my ball hurts, my left testicle in particular. For those of you guys that care, I did go back to the doctor's office this morning to basically be told, let's get another CT scan and wait and see how things are looking for you. Even as I sit here with my left testy in pain. So, yeah, I would expect that we're going to see some strikes from Iran coming out sometime in the very near future. And if you guys are curious, we'll see how it works out. I've got an app that's in development that'll drop over in the Discord for you guys to be able to pull a lot of this information that I am currently pulling on all these different topics and where everything's coming from, so that you guys can stay up to date if you miss a show or you just have it on your phone. It's got the ability to send alerts, etc. So to you guys. So hopefully I get that set up and we're pushing notifications out for you guys with our very own app that'll be coming out. How am I doing it? Don't ask questions. Just let it freaking happen, man. Just let it happen. Yeah, fortunately I have 2 balls left. I do. So thank the good Lord for that. Yeah, put a Bravo under it and rest it. No, dude, I'm not putting Bravo on my cojones, my friend. That's just not going to be a thing. It's just not going to happen. But if you guys do remember, I told you, and I frickin' told you that this whole Iran thing is going to have a huge impact on what's taking place over inside of the Ukraine-Russian war. And of course, just a couple months later, we see everything starting to taper off because the strategic partnership that you had set up between Iran and between Russia and the amount of material support that Russia relies on from China. Underground says Chi-Town in the house. Oh, yay. Oh, yay. Chicago in the house. Eric Sinstricker says, hey, Matt, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you guys for supporting me and tuning in all the time as I put these on. Ronald Hunt says, for F's sake, let's not get him started on Charlie. It really is not hard. One funny trans loving freak shot him like a coward. That's exactly what it is, and it's like you know what, man, I can't help it sometimes. Now you did it. It's like fighting stupidity on a daily basis when I end up looking at this stuff. People are like, I don't understand how the projectile could have done this crazy stuff. What's his name? Ian Carroll's losing his shit over on X because I keep putting this stuff out. It's like, dude, are you not reading up on terminal ballistics and how they actually work, and what ends up happening and so on and so forth? Like you just can't possibly be this like retarded, but he is. So I don't know. Just sitting there fighting it, and they are. I mean, they're in straight panic mode, in my opinion, because of all the information that we ended up putting out. Somebody ended up sharing this today. To try to explain to them using a graphic of a windshield. And they're like, oh my God, windshields. Yeah. Yes, Discord. You know what? Hell with it, man. Let's go over. We'll knock out quick Discord chat because Castle seems like he's got a lot on his mind, and it's been a hot minute anyways. I don't have that long to do it, man, but I got 15 minutes to spare for you guys. Why the hell not? You guys are always there for me. All right, let's go ahead. I'll open up the stage right now. Live, start. Let's start it. It's been a hot minute since I was live up over on Discord, and I need to get better about it. Anyways, so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are live in Discord. If you're a true supporter and you guys have it, feel free to jump up. Come on in, ask questions, do whatever it is y'all want. And I'm here. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. I know that it ends up giving problems. If you guys can't hear me for some reason, let me know. Absolutely let me know. Castle, you should be coming in. Just sent you the freaking mic, so hopefully it allows you up. Oh dear Lord. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
There you are, sir.
For some reason, I don't know why, but all members can just go up on the stage. I would suggest to fix that before everyone decides to just hop up on their own.
Nah, it'll be fine.
Okay. I was going to ask, this was what someone else, I saw this in the side, not the side panel, it's the live chat on YouTube, and it was from the Lonius Bad, and I sent that in like a £10 super chat, but you missed it earlier. Doesn't matter.
I apologize.
He was saying, it's fine. He was saying that as soon as, this is what he said, as soon as the effects of not nuking Ukraine become less desirable than the backlash would be if they did, like say if they were going to collapse anyway, it's over for Ukraine. That's his words, not mine. I don't think it would be over for Ukraine because, as you mentioned, a lot of their logistics are just in shambles. There's basically nothing left. But all it would take is one to be an absolute mess that could be damn near irrecoverable for the duration of the war. So it's kind of like if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me kind of mindset. And the question is, at what point would Russia get to that point of I'm taking you down with me no matter what it takes? That's what I'm questioning.
I feel like they're already at that point, to be honest.
So
how many millions of people do you think they have to lose for them to say I'm taking you with me? I mean, that's certainly what it feels like at this point.
Well, honestly, too, Matt, there's one thing too that I don't see many people touching on at this point.
Tell me about it.
So the thing is, as well, Putin, from what I've been told, Putin doesn't even think it's that bad because the problem is, it's the same problem that Trump has where he has a bunch of people kissing his ass all the time, otherwise their heads roll, to the point where he's insulated to the truth of what's going on.
So I hear that, but that's also taking away from the fact that they are redirecting fuel all around the country, and they are extremely short on money, and they are extremely short of equipment. So there's not very much like butthole smoke blowing that you can do to explain to Putin why the troops don't have what they need on the front and why they have to redirect fuel to different locations in the country, and why the offensive in the South is completely and totally stopped.
100% completely agree with that. I'm just wondering, honestly, my question is, because we've listened to this man talk on multiple occasions. We all can agree Putin's fucking insane.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember the craziest shit. I think the last craziest thing I heard him say was that the Poles don't exist, that they're Russian. I'm trying to remember what the craziest shit he said was.
Russia even existed. I don't know what he's even saying. It's insane.
Yeah, he said, like, dude, this man is absolutely insane.
Sure, Putin's absolutely nuts, but Putin being absolutely crazy doesn't mean that he's unaware of reality for what's going on the ground, and he's unaware of reality.
Like, you can say anything you want about him, but he's not an idiot. Like, he knows how to work with the state. He knows how to run a country to his own benefit. Not really to the benefit of the Russian people, because by far they would probably be the same as where they are back in the 2000s, where they had their boom. Well,
oh no, they're worse off now. Like they're.
I said if it was actually for the benefit of the Russian people, then it would be during their boom in the 90s and early 2000s, economically, at least.
Right.
But regardless, that's not the point. The point which I'm just making is we can't say that he's a fool. We can say that he's saying all sorts of stuff to justify the stuff that he's doing, just as any dictator has done throughout all of history. But we can't call him a fool or an actual idiot. He's smarter than people think. I mean, he was in the KGB back during the time of the Soviet Union and very high up in their ranks, as far as I'm aware. So can't really call him a fool.
Yeah,
so
and
don't underestimate him. It's a big thing.
His biggest mistake was the Russian generals and everybody that basically convinced and had him doing all this, had Russia doing all this wild crap over there, all that wild stuff that Russia was doing, the meat waves, the freaking waste of troops, the waste of supplies, the waste of equipment, telling them that they're going to keep up. It was the poor military planning that got them this far, and still to this day we see it. Still to this day, we see it as far as like the targets they're picking. And here's something else that's very significant about, the last couple attacks on Kyiv and several other locations over inside of Ukraine. They're not taking out like massive strategic targets anymore. I mean, when was the last time you saw a massive multiple massive ammunition depots getting destroyed over inside of Ukraine, or anything that's really going to affect the front line consistently?
Very few times I've ever seen any kind of or heard of anything like that. But here's one thing I just want to say before you carry on is another sign that which I just thought of with of Russia crumbling further and further is how many people are joining their what's that Russian rebellion called again, that rebel unit, those rebel units that are
Free Russians, I think.
Yeah, how many people are joining those, and how many reports of sabotage have they been increasing over the recent days? Or
I've heard
I'll take a look at
silence from those guys.
I'll take a look. Not. I mean, obviously, I don't expect to see huge announcements of them all taking place, but there's signs and instances of sabotage, just like as we talked about, before Iran kicked off, where Iran had its signs and symptoms. There's signs and symptoms of sabotage as well. So we'll take a look at those at the same time. Just like how we saw.
I heard of them was the Kursk offensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll take a good look into it. And it's also not just, the signs and symptoms of sabotage over inside of Mother Russia, but also here, let me share this with you guys in the Discord. Let me see if I can get the right screen shared. Yes, I can. It's not just them, but you can also remember in this whole area over near Kherson, where everything is, going to crap for the Russians right now in the south. You also have a bunch of partisan forces that are down within here, and they've been very silent for a very long period of time. I remember at one point talking about having, what was it? Having like a bunch of freaking Russian officers getting poisoned, like honeypots that were freaking killing people, supply lines being destroyed, things like that. If this area is going to fall, we should also see more from these like partisans over in this area. They're going to start crushing them as well. Does that kind of track and make sense to you?
Yeah. That makes sense in the area of Ukraine. Though I do remember that back during the attempted offensive into the southern front, which just stalled out, there was massive amounts of I think there was an uprising in Melitopol, or at least a massive increase of insurgencies, like Ukrainian insurgency movements. But afterwards, as far as I'm aware, the Russians cracked down on that really, really hard within the occupied regions, and that I've never heard a single thing since then about any kind of rebel movements inside of occupied Ukraine. Which my concern is that might have been at least stumped out until, and plus the fact that Ukraine wasn't able to pierce the front line during that period probably destroyed a lot of trust that those rebels might have had. Yeah, because I mean, if they announce that there's going to be an offensive, then the front line's going to be ready.
Some of that stuff was.
I just wanted to say thank you for letting me up here, and also I got to get going.
Right, brother.
Also, the true purpose I came here for was, Matt, do you have your pants on?
Yes, I do. Yes, I am. Well, I'm wearing shorts right now. I'm wearing gym shorts right now. So, but yes, I 100%. It's been a long time. But
Are we still doing fucking pants checks?
no, that's
Like,
the
yes,
first
we
one
are.
I think that's the first one I've allowed in months. And truthfully, I haven't been in the Discord very much. And I'm sorry for that. Just a lot of shit going on in life. But there's your
That's
pants
fine.
check. I am wearing pants, ladies and gentlemen, even though I haven't been allowing pants checks. Yes, they are on. So
I
yeah,
think this
that's
just gives
all.
the opportunity for the poor to actually talk to people. That's all. Because I'm not
Yeah.
great on money right now, so that was a big risk I took there by
you know,
sending all those.
and when I saw you write that, man, I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I need to get my butt in the Discord. Like I need to get back to doing it. I need to get back to those things. Having so
And
much
the
developing in
emotions.
Russian.
Yeah.
and the
I gotta get some sleep, boys. Have a good one. Yeah.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Myself at the end. Sorry.
Did Nate jump off stage because he was? Nope. Nate's still in here. Nate,
No, I'm still here. What's up?
what's your opinion on the way forward for Ukraine and the Ruskies?
Well, look, I think Ukraine is playing a smart long game, and they really had two options, and like everybody was wanting them to do this full frontal assault, and that's not a good tactic when you're look, Russia is the bigger guy in the boxing ring.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're fighting Mike Tyson and you just stand there and trade punches with him, you're probably going to fucking lose.
Right.
But if you can get around to the side and hit things he's not expecting you to hit, like oil refineries that are 1,000 miles from the front lines, and they relied on their geography to protect them, then you're doing something like Evander Holyfield did when he beat the shit out of Mike Tyson. So I think they're playing the smart game, but there's still a lot of fighting left to do. I don't think this thing's going to be over the next 2 weeks or anything like that. But I think if they continue this and they continue to accelerate these attacks on their oil infrastructure, they'll put too much pressure on them, and it will cost the Russians dearly if they don't stop it before they damage too much of their shit.
So to be
It's
clear,
like
2,500 kilometers. A lot of the people over in Europe get that. For the Americans that are listening, that's roughly 1,600 miles. To put that in perspective.
Yeah, it's just divide by 1.6 when you see kilometers. And that's how many miles.
Yep.
I still use miles. I'm from the UK. We don't know. Not barely anyone here uses kilometers. To be
Oh,
clear.
really? Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm a passer through, but still, meters, kilometers, miles, etc. You got them both. 2,500 kilometers, or yes. I mean, it's absurd. Almost 1,600 miles. It's a stretch that ended up getting struck today, and that shows honestly how weak Russian air defenses are, that they penetrated that deep. And it wasn't like it was just one drone that hit that sucker. It looked like at least half a dozen smacked into it, and that's very significant. That's significant.
Question is now whether. Now, I'm not thinking when it comes to the nuclear option that it would be used on a strategic target, because that would be just stupid. Because for all the reasons that we've discussed before, but more like as a show of force, like in an abandoned area of, say, like an abandoned area, like an area with minimal or no troop presence or civilian presence or anything, just like a batch of land on, like, near, like in occupied Ukraine, for example, or in the Black Sea, or in, well, obviously not in their own country, because that would kind of be just a test.
Right.
But either way, a show of force is what I'm getting at. Obviously, it'd be next level saber rattling, but it wouldn't be against Ukraine. It would be against the support for Ukraine. And from what I've noticed, since the support for Ukraine has been a bit tedious, to say the best, when it comes to the American government and how they've been approaching it, because it's like sometimes they're all for it, sometimes they're not. It's very indecisive from what I've gotten over the past several years. And Europe as well, say with more right-wing parties coming into power, being less favourable to Ukraine, which I think is ridiculous, because putting Ukraine as a political point for your party is honestly the most stupid thing imaginable. But anyways, the point that I'm getting is, with this shift happening, and Ukraine can see it happening, of course they're going to want to do as much as they can with the time that they have, because their logistics from other countries could potentially be in jeopardy due to their political upheaval or their own internal politics in their countries. Hence why you're seeing this kind of escalation. That's my theory. I would say if it's kind of like this isn't, I wouldn't say end game, but it's, let's just say like at least within the next few years it could be an end game kind of thing of, okay, who's gonna fall apart to attrition first? And this is why I'm like, who's like, if Russia's gonna start getting into the point where their attrition's gonna make it damn near impossible to function as a state, then drastic measures is what I'm thinking of, what we have on hand. Like
that's where you're at, but also realistically, they also would like to survive. Honestly,
well, yes, of course.
So you have a nation that is struggling economically, that's struggling not just economically, but also with the supply deficit that they're currently running for their war efforts. You've got over 50% of their GDP, which is dwindling, going towards the war effort, and they have a massive recruiting problem right now. But the biggest tell that goes into this isn't necessarily who's going to outlast who. Truthfully, it is your morale on the front line. When the U.S. invaded Afghanistan and you had the Taliban that was just hiding out and doing their freaking best, on one side you have people, right, that are fighting for their country, that have been invaded by a hostile nation that has committed mass genocide. Like, to be perfectly clear about it, mass genocide. You have over 17,000 children that have been stolen, all right, and taken out of your country and into somebody else's. Now, they might be smaller in size, they might be lacking in a lot of things, but the one thing that, you know, people often overlook is that heart aspect. That is huge. You know, you are not going to, let's put it this way. If Russia overtook all of Ukraine, which was their original freaking goal, right? Their goal was to sack Kiev. If they overtook all of Ukraine, they wouldn't have survived. They would have had a massive insurgency problem on their hands that they wouldn't have been capable of handling. Like the unconventional warfare that would have taken place in that instance, and that continues to be a threat for them as a problem. So even if we were to take this out long term and you say, okay, Ukraine ends up losing this entire thing, Russia ends up taking over all of Ukraine, they're all going to die anyways.
Well, yeah, clearly, I know that. I know, like, basically for Ukraine, this is a war of survival. I don't think they would ever surrender because they know it's a war for survival. But the question is, would Russia surrender? Because the thing is, what I see is their problem, at least as a government, is their pride is in the way. They're not, I don't think, at least not anytime soon, would they surrender before they collapse. And that's where I'm questioning whether they're aware of that or not. And if they are, then what measures are they going to take? Like,
Nate, would you like to address that?
This is kind of the situation that Russia was in during World War One, with the last time of this, like the final years of the Russian Tsars before the Bolshevik revolutions. And that this is the kind of point where I'm like, could this be another one? And if so, who's going to be it? That's why I'm questioning about the Russian, what did you call it again? I'm really bad with names. The Russian rebels, what are their names? Those revolutionaries in Russia that are like tiny amount.
Nate, would you like to address that?
Yeah.
People are always talking about what the nuclear threshold is for Russia, which would be like the most dramatic thing they could do.
Of course it would be.
And look, if you start detonating nuclear weapons in the Black Sea, any goodwill that you had from anybody in the West will evaporate immediately. That's a game nobody likes to play, right?
Yeah, that's a valid point.
No one wants to fuck with that. You know what I mean? And the Chinese included, right? Like, do not start playing around with nuclear weapons. Nobody likes it. The other thing is the existential crisis that the Russians would face is not Ukraine returning to its original borders. The existential crisis would be something like NATO marching into Moscow. That would trigger a nuclear response, and I think they would do it in that case because they would cease to exist. Mm-hmm. But it's like, and Matt will tell you this, if you're in an urban conflict, what you always want to do if you're going to take a building or take a structure is always leave the enemy an avenue to at least believe they can escape, right?
Yep.
Unless you want to kill them.
Yeah, if they can leave, they might fight a little less hard if they know there's an exit strategy that exists. And for the Russians, all they got to do is go home. Right? So it starts to get really hard to threaten nuclear war when all you got to do is drive about, 200 kilometers and end the war.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, I'm not saying it would be like used as a nuclear war, as to be clear. I was just meaning as in doing a test or something. But you're right. And like doing it on their own land, it would just be unviable, because even China would be like, no, I'm cutting you off for this because you've basically made it that this is now an option on the table, and it's going to make it a real headache if I decide to go whenever China decides to go for Taiwan, or if they do. Like, because then the world would be more likely to see that as a viable option if it's being used. Like,
but anybody who is like saying the bullshit about like, oh, the Russians are just fighting, they're trying to reunite their brother Ukrainians, all that shit would evaporate if the threat of nuclear weapons was being thrown at Kyiv. It's just they can't do it, and they know it's suicide. So the instant they try, that's it, right? It's over.
The more
I think the West get kinetically involved at that point.
Yeah, that's valid. And to be honest, at that point, it would be like not via. Oh wait, did Matt just? Oh no, Matt's still here. Sorry, I thought you left. So I'm just gonna finish it with this. Is that with everything I heard just from what you're saying there, I agree. I totally agree. And when I'm thinking about more like if Russia doesn't get theirs, like say, quit this war and surrender. Well, to be honest, their whole economy is basically a war economy at this point. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because the war is kind of one of the only few things keeping their economy afloat. Because munitions factories and all that, but that even then it's not that. It's barely anything. So it's kind of like, do they want to die from 1,000 cuts, or do they want to just go kaboom? By kaboom, I mean their own country, like just breaking apart. The warlords thing, like how China does every 100 or so years. Like that's the kind of thing which I'm thinking about, and that's the biggest concern. If Russia does go down that path and decides to go, okay, it completely collapses. Say, like how the Soviet Union nearly did in 1991 with that attempted coup. If there was a coup and it actually happened without a peaceful transition, it would have been a real mess. Like, and there's Russia splinters into like, I don't know, a dozen different states with nuclear weapons being stretched out all across it, then that's a real worry, because then what happens there with all these different conflicting states?
Well, that was a worry. That was a worry in '91, which is why the U.S. primarily funded the security of the Russian nuclear program, because, and that sounds weird. You're like, why would we do that? And the alternative is it gets sold on the black market.
Oh yeah, we don't want terrorists getting nuclear weapons.
No, which I think is a valid concern for the West. Is like, when people say we just need to crush Russia, it's like, okay, well, there's some secondary and tertiary kind of concerns that come with that. And I'm no fucking supporter of Russia at all.
You just want to keep them alive, but barely.
Well, not even that, but you do have to consider what happens to their nuclear arsenal.
Well, yes,
right? Because
exactly
all of a sudden, a bunch of oligarchs with no income, and they're sitting on something really, really valuable.
Yep. So you can't just go and occupy it either, because then those, warlords or oligarchs would be like, use them.
Yep.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that. I mean, fucking billionaires like life. You know what I mean? They enjoy life. They don't want to die.
I mean, but okay, maybe if it's not like a warlord thing. But still,
no, it's not warlords. It's not how it works in Russia. It's not.
Oh yeah, I forgot. They're not. It's not like China. It's different. My bad.
It's not going to be some random fucking warlord. But if you have like the FSB and the GRU are suddenly devoid of any income, and they have to fund themselves somehow, they might get creative and fucking sell a nuke to somebody that we don't want to have it, like Iran, for example. So it is a legitimate concern what happens to those things if Russia fails. And, but like, look, ultimately what's going to happen before it gets to that point is it's going to start becoming very, very difficult to materially move supplies to the front and support those troops on the front. And they're going to fucking fuck off and go home. Right? Like eventually, There's one, you know, they're not just going to lay there and die.
So massive routes, and what's the word again when entire military units rebel? Oh, the word is escaping me. It's so bad. Like when they rebel against their officers and commanders. Mutinies.
You're talking about mutiny? Yeah.
Yeah, large scale mutinies.
Well, I mean, I don't even think it'll be that. They'll just, you know, at some point, if it gets bad, like Crimea, for
They're just
example.
going to throw in the
Crimea is
damn
very
towel.
Yeah, Crimea is very difficult to support logistically, right? There's only like one way, you know, you got the Kerch Bridge and then the land bridge. And if you eliminate those two, it is kind of like a barren desert. You know what I mean? Like the Russians blew up that dam, which provided the fresh water to Crimea. And at some point, at some point, you just can't maintain life at a large scale without infrastructure. So those guys will say, fuck this, and they'll just go home, right? Like, I'm not going to just lay here and starve to death because some fucking asshole in Moscow, you know, says it's cool. Not doing it. Like, there is a point where you get hungry and thirsty enough to say, fuck it.
Okay, valid then. Then the only thing to which I'd say is a concern for the Ukrainians at this point is not nuclear weaponry, but more like the chemical and biological agents. And I'm not meaning like the ones that are mild toxins or say that are irritants. I'm talking like effective chemical or biological agents being used, whether it be on front lines or on tactical targets, unlikely to be strategic targets, but say on tactical or frontline, or mainly tactical targets. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, guys.
The problem with that, are you going to call it, Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna call it. I have kidney issues and I need to address those.
That's fine.
Just at least. I love you guys. I really do. We're gonna continue to do this more, Castle. You'll be able to get in here and debate everybody. I promise you, brother. All right.
Of course. Bless you, Matt. Next time we got to hear an emotional next stream.
You know, if you really want me to record myself attempting to get rid of this kidney stone, I will. And I will send you the personal audio from it. How does that sound?
Oh man, I think I'd be scarred for life if I heard that.
I'll do it. If you want it, I'll do it. All right, guys.
No, thank you.
All right. Thanks for getting me off my butt and back in the Discord, my friend. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, Matt. Look forward to seeing you here again.
Same.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for me tonight. As you just heard, I'm gonna take off and go do my thing. Long story short, whatever you do, you know, always dig for the truth. Always look, get down to the freaking bottom, nitty gritty things. Don't ignore science. Don't ignore facts. Look for things, validate them. I don't care who your source is, where it comes from. Actually look up and back it up with something that's actually verifiable. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me for another episode. Peace.